So then you changed your mind again and decided to buy it. Did you do that? Did you do that?
I kind of had to.
Right. Did you do that because you thought that a court would make you do that?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that is the reason.
Right. So you were still trying to get out of it, and then you just were advised by lawyers, look, you're going to have to buy this.
Yes.
Interesting. So you
yeah.
So you didn't actually want to purchase it even when you said you were going.
Well, not at that price.
Today we're going to talk about Elon Musk. He did an interview with the BBC, and a guy named James Clayton was the interviewer. Greg, why don't you tell us about the videos we're going to watch?
Unusually, first, this guy's been diagnosed with Asperger's, which today is not called Asperger's, but is autism spectrum disorder in the DSM. So we'll make sure we clear that up front. We may say Asperger's just because we forget.
So then you changed your mind again and decided to buy it. Did you do that? Did you do that?
I kind of had to.
Right. Did you do that because you thought that a court would make you do that?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that is the reason.
Right. So you were still trying to get out of it, and then you just were advised by lawyers, look, you're going to have to buy this.
Yes.
Interesting. So you
yeah.
So you didn't actually want to purchase it even when you said you were going.
Well, not at that price.
You were going to really.
No, I mean, like let's say, I think the analogy is pretty close. Like, let's say, it's like there's a warehouse full of goods. They say the warehouse less than 5% of what's in the warehouse is broken. And then you walk into the warehouse, you say, actually, it's 25%. So you might still want to buy what's in that warehouse, but probably at a lower price. Not buying the stuff that's broken.
So you didn't have an epiphany. You just thought, I'm gonna have to buy this. I might as well buy the bullet.
Yeah.
So then you walk.
It's not super complicated.
Right. I'm not sure you've said that before.
Oh, fair enough.
So then you came into Twitter.
Cue a whole bunch of court cases. You said this in the BBC interview, blah, etc.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Elon's behavior in this clip is his baseline. And it's the same behavior you'll see on Joe Rogan. It's the same behavior you'll see when he's hanging out with somebody doing a different interview. He's commonly making these little adjustments with his shoulders in many cases. And this is usually social discomfort when you see it. Elon's already acknowledged publicly that he has Asperger's syndrome, and some of the most common behaviors associated with that are difficulty in social settings and repetitive behaviors like you're seeing here in this clip. The reporter's genuinely trying to manage every movement of his body here to control his anxiety and his stress on camera. And this is something that people tend to go through as well when they start learning body language and nonverbal communication skills. I know I certainly did. And there's a tendency to overanalyze everything, including yourself, and then overmanage everything. And this quickly becomes exhausting. And I think most people find this transition point where they just finally let go and take off the handcuffs of kind of worrying about the perceptions of so many people. And people learning body language tend to think everyone else knows what they know. Truth is, 99% of people have nothing even resembling a clue about most of this stuff. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this is really an interesting one. And Chase, I like that you bring up that this is his baseline. I think his baseline is fairly complex. I think, like most folks who get this far in life, he has a baseline for when something is pitched to him and he has to respond. And by that, I mean a provocation versus something he has to think about. And that baseline is his steepling, sitting there waiting, and then he'll start to speak and use his hands and do all of that. We're going to see later that when he is forced to think, he has a very different baseline, and it's very consistent. So we're going to look for baselines when he's doing one thing versus doing the other. All humans do it. We all have different things, and that's how we create a strung together baseline for the entire person, not simply little snippets. So we're going to see a snippet here, a snippet there, and we'll string together what's normal. There's another interesting thing. When you are the 800-pound gorilla, when you are the alpha, other people emulate your behavior. Think of Trump and all the people doing this around Trump. There's something really weird about that when you happen to be non-neurotypical and you do odd things. You can even get to a point that other people are copying you because it's innate in us. The four of us have body language that's similar because we're part of a culture. And wherever the 800-pound gorilla is, folks are going to emulate his behavior. So it gets really odd when it's a non-neurotypical. I'd love to watch meetings with this guy. We're going to see some unique body language as he goes through this. Here he's in as he's starting to think, he's doing normal kind of what we would consider normal gesturing, illustrating as he's bringing up facts about business. He's lockstep in his cadence and his illustrators. Everything's aligned. We call that congruency. And you've seen this in other interviews in the past from them, but when he's uncomfortable, he'll jump up in a chair, do other things. And I think that's part of what we're seeing with that shoulder shrug. That's repetitive motion. I think it's related in this case to the autism rather than to the actual message he's trying to send, because he's so free in his gesturing and his illustrating. When he goes to no brainer, watch his hands. He does the same thing we all do. That's a no brainer. Touches the side of his head and then starts to joke about cueing the court cases. Let's watch this interviewer. Now we know what his pitch, tone, and cadence are normally because he's pretty fluid here. Bump, bump, bump. He's illustrating in front of himself. He's illustrating even with his finger. He's illustrating and making his points. Wait until he gets under stress and watch some of this change. This will be a really good example of what baseline looks like in one person and another and which one's feeling the most stress. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah. So very specific and important. And it comes from this phrase of in business of never be a forced seller. Well, Musk here is a forced buyer. He's being forced to buy this company by the courts. And we see him brace himself, go from relaxed to braced when he starts talking about having to buy Twitter, being forced by the courts, because, you know, it's just an absurd situation to be in, because it's the exact opposite of the forced seller situation. It's the forced buyer situation. In a business sense, it's an absurdity. I think that's where the humor comes for him. We'll hear him later talk about the idea of absurdity, and absurdity and humor is a way more kind of European idea, way more German, way more Dutch kind of style, and potentially more neurotypical for him, absurd humor. So I think that's it is his baseline, but I think that's where he finds the humor, the opposites in there. I was watching an episode of Ted Lasso. It was, I think, the first episode of the second season. There's somebody says in that he's not being rude, he's being Dutch. So understand, different, and Musk comes from a Dutch Pennsylvanian background, English background as well. So South African as well, again, links with the Dutch as well. So we're going to get an English, Dutch, absurdist kind of world from him, as well as his neurotype as well, enjoying that kind of scene as well. So I think that's why we get this succession of laughter from him. Now, he spins that into it's not super complicated. His opposition here, Clayton, says, but I'm not sure you've ever said that before. And Musk concedes on that. Fair enough. So I think in debate sense, I would say James Clayton actually kind of wins that little bit of that argument there by Musk conceding that he's never told anybody this before, and therefore this is new information. And I think we see the enjoyment in Clayton of managing to score a point. So here's what we need to understand is that he is there to try and score points. He is there to try and have some kind of debate. So you'd hope that he's got some tools at the ready to continue this debate. Let's see whether he has. Let's see how he gets on. Scott, what do you got on this one?
All right, I'm gonna go a little bit against what you guys said about the laughing and stuff, because I think what happened there was when he was forced to buy it, I think when they got in there and found out it was quote unquote broken to that extent, I think he probably knew that, and he was going in and he got a better deal when they made him buy it than he would if he just waltzed in and bought it. So I think that's why he gets that little shits and giggles and that little goofy bump going on when he talks about that, and then he says, "Yes, that's the reason." Because I think that's his leak. I think by accident he said, "Yeah, that's the reason," because I think he got a better deal on it. Because we're talking about billions of dollars here. I don't know was he going to buy it for in the first place, and what did he end up buying it for? Do you guys know? Did he save any money? Was it cheaper?
I think it was 54 was the initial offer, I think,
and he paid 43. I think. Yeah. Okay.
So maybe that was it. So maybe he saved a few $1 billion by doing that. That's the way it looked to me. That's what I took from it. And now we're seeing his illustrators. They're way up. They're way up here. where's the passion plane, Mark? This is the passion plane?
Anywhere around the chest. Yeah.
Okay, then, and this is the what plane?
Closure or disclosure, thought up here, ecstatic up here.
Okay. Well, then we only see that one time when both of his fingers come up, and they're almost eye level when he's up in there. So I think he's fairly excited about this because I don't think he knows how to control that giddiness he's got about the better deal that he got on that at that point. And I think so. His confidence cues are when he sits up straight and he steeples his fingers, even though they're not steepled the way we'd like for you to. And then he laughs, and his voice volume is really, really strong. So he's really confident. That voice volume gets strong. However, we're going to see one where he's confident, where his voice volume is lower. It's still got a good tone to it, but the volume is fairly lower. But that's in a few videos from now.
One of those tape replays.
So then you changed your mind again and decided to buy it. Did you do that?
I kind of had to.
Right. Did you do that because you thought that a court would make you do that?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that is the reason.
Right. So you were still trying to get out of it, and then you just were advised by lawyers, look, you're going to have to buy this.
Yes.
Interesting. So you.
Yeah.
So you didn't actually want to purchase it, even when you said you were going.
Well, not at that price.
You were going to, really.
No, I mean, like let's say, I think the analogy is pretty close. Like, let's say, it's like there's a warehouse full of goods. They say the warehouse, less than 5% of what's in the warehouse is broken. And then you walk into the warehouse, you say, actually, it's 25%. So you might still want to buy what's in that warehouse, but probably at a lower price. Not buying the stuff that's broken.
So you didn't have an epiphany. You just thought, I'm gonna have to buy this. I might as well buy the bullet.
Yeah.
So then you walked
It's not super complicated.
Right. I'm not sure you've said that before.
Oh, fair enough.
So then you came into Twitter.
Cue a whole bunch of court cases. You said this in the BBC interview, blah, blah, etc.
All right, if you don't know who we are, we're the Behavior Panel. And I'm Scott Rouse. I'm a body language expert and analyst, and I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language. I created the #1 online body language course, bodylanguagetactics.com, with Greg Hartley. Mark?
I'm Mark Bowden. I'm an expert in human behavior and body language, help people all over the world to stand out, win trust, gain credibility every time they communicate, including some of the leaders of the G7. Chase.
Hey, I'm Chase Hughes, did 20 years in the U.S. military, published a #1 best-selling book on behavior profiling, influence, and persuasion, and I teach those things to everybody today. You just type my name in the App Store to get training. Greg
Hartley. I'm a former Army interrogator, interrogation instructor, resistance interrogation instructor. I've written 10 books on body language and behavior, put together the #1 body language tactics course with Scott, and I spend most of my time in business.
One of those tape replays.